everyone, this is Joni, and I thought that I would get on here and make a video, and because I haven't made one for a while. I made one the other night, but I haven't got it put up yet. So I probably will be putting it up within the next couple, 3 days or so. But I just thought that I would get on and let you all know a few things that's been going on with me since I haven't been making my videos. And I have gotten some feedback from you through my contents, and I have tried to answer some of you when you were sending them, but I was still having a lot of problems with my eyes. And for that reason, it was very difficult for me to read the information that you had in the contents, so comments. And so I just thought that I would go ahead and get on here and let you all know that I'm still here and still ornery as ever. And but I try not to be too ornery. But anyway, the time has just passed slowly in one way and quickly in another with all of the COVID and everything that was going on, because I didn't go out any for the longest time. I mean, the longest time. I was in for almost a year. I haven't been out since last December, and except about, I'm going to say, up until about 2 weeks ago, I had been out probably about 5 times. I went out once before Christmas and picked up a gift that I needed to get. And I just went close to the house. I didn't go far, probably about a mile or 2 miles from the house. And then I didn't go out anymore for the longest time because Tanya always got my groceries for me, and she would bring them home and give them to me in the garage. And I would even take the things out of the cartons. If they came in cartons, I'd take them out of the cartons and just bring the inside part of it in. And I would put my meat directly into the freezer in different containers and all sorts of things like that, because I knew that I wanted to be sure that I got any germs that were on the packages. I wanted to get rid of those because I sure didn't want to get that messy stuff. But anyway, it was really bad because with I couldn't see Tanya that much either, because she is exposed to quite a bit due to her husband working the way he does. So I was afraid that he would bring something home unknowingly and give it to her. And then she would give it to me without knowing that she had even been exposed. So I just more or less had to stay alone. And it wasn't fun. And if I had thought, and I really wasn't feeling that well during that time, but I was going to say, if I had felt better, it would have served me well if I had gone ahead and just thrown myself into making a lot of videos. And I probably could have occupied my mind more. But I didn't do that. I really wasn't thinking in that line, so I just have to do as I come to it, you might say. So anyway, it has gone by now, and I guess we're getting ready to maybe get into some more of it now. That seems to be spreading quite a bit again. But I think that it's probably a lot like, I know when the Hong Kong flu and I think it was the swine flu, and a bunch of those flus were going around. We didn't take any extra precautions. I mean, we wouldn't go directly in if we knew someone had it. But we went to the store, we went shopping, we did what we wanted to do, and none of us caught it. Now, my sister did. She and her husband, in fact, their whole family had it. But her daughter-in-law's parents were originally from Florida, and that's when we lived up north. And they had been up north visiting some people, so they came by my sister's and to visit, and she told them that they had the Hong Kong flu. And they said, well, that didn't bother them. They would just go ahead and come in and spend some time with them. So they stayed almost a week with them. But she said that while they were there, they ate tons and tons of oranges. And she said they would, the big navel oranges that you get from down here. And she said that they would just sit while they were laughing and talking in the evenings or at night. And they would just sit and peel those oranges and eat 1 to 2 oranges. And not a one of them took the flu. They didn't take it at all. They stayed about a week, and then they left and went on home and never did take it. So it may have been the vitamin C in those oranges, and it may have been that their resistance was just built up, that they didn't take it. But my sister was always really careful anyway, she and her husband, when they had something like that. But that's in the air, as we all know. So I think it must have been their immune system was just so built up, and then the vitamin C and all those oranges that kept them from taking it. So we have begun taking zinc. And, there's another one. I can't remember what it is. But Tanya told me she wanted me to take zinc. And so that's what I've started doing. And I'm going to see if it will build my immune system up some to where maybe if I were to be exposed to that COVID, that I might not be as susceptible to it as if I weren't on the zinc. I know I heard one of the doctors also talking, and he said he had all his patients that were not ill on zinc, and I can't remember the other thing. Oh, vitamin D. Vitamin D3. And I have been taking D3 for several years, so I take 4 of those a day. And because I was low in vitamin D, I was down, I think my count was 14, and I believe it's supposed to be in the 20s. And so mine was really low, but I got it built back up. So now I take 4 vitamin D a day, and I have upped it now since I heard that doctor talking, and I take 5, and then I'm on the 1 zinc, and I think it's 500, I believe. Don't hold me to that. I'll have to check. And she brought it home to me, and I just went ahead and started taking it. Because now, since things have calmed down here, I don't feel as afraid to get around her. So she has been coming up to the house and visiting me, and we've gone out 3 times, and we didn't do very much, but just to get out and everything like that. So things are going along pretty well in that respect so far. I better knock on some wood, and I don't have any wood around me. I'm superstitious sometimes. But there is just so much going on that a person really doesn't know what to do, hardly. But anyway, I have gotten another one of my papers out that I thought that I would read it to you. In my other video, I'll have to explain my other video to you because you haven't seen it. I made it, and Uh, and then I'm making this one. So in the one, I made a video, and I read a paper in it, and that I had written to my granddaughter when she was just a little, well, she was only probably about 3 weeks old when I wrote it. And she's 16 now. But anyway, I read that to you, and I told you how we were getting along and everything. And I thought we were over with the hurricanes when I made that video. But lo and behold, we weren't, and I wasn't expecting another one. So Tanya called me the other evening, and she said, Mom, she said, we're supposed to get another hurricane. And she said, but it's supposed to go on toward New Orleans like the other one. And she said, but we're going to, get the house, so we're going to go ahead. And they had taken their shutters off. I told them, I said, just leave my shutters on. I don't care if people think I've lost my mind. I don't really care about that anymore, because I do pretty much what I want to do. And so when they took their shutters off the other time, after Sally passed, I told them, I said, just leave my shutters on. I don't care, don't mind it. And I said, then if we get another one, we won't have to rush putting the shutters back up. So they took theirs down, and then here came another hurricane. And it hit last week, I believe it was. And the wind in this one, it went way beyond us to the west of us. But the wind came through here, something fierce. And it seems like they always do that at night. I don't know why. But it wouldn't be nearly as bad, or it wouldn't seem as bad, if you could see what was going on, and if you knew it was daylight outside. But this one came through about the same time Sally did, I think. But Sally lasted all night, and it went right over us. But this one didn't. It was just the big bands that was around the original eye. So, but we got some harsh winds, and I could hear that wind blowing all night. And at first we had a tornado warning, of course. And I have this one place that I go to when I have a tornado warning, because the builders told my husband when we were building the house that that was the one safest place if we were to have a hurricane or something with tornadoes, that was the most supported place in the house. And it ends up that it's in my hall. And so I had to get in the hall. Well, due to a time that we had another hurricane, and we had another tornado warning, I didn't have anything in the closet except a bunch of pillows. And I had the pillows because this is a little coat closet. And so on the top shelf, I have a bunch of games stored up there. And there must be about 10 or 12 games up there. And so I always put a bunch of pillows in there so I can put over top of my head in case those things would start falling and they wouldn't hit me in the head at least. So I hadn't put anything in there to sit on or anything other than a pillow. And I got in there one night, and this has probably been about a year or so ago, and maybe a year and a half. And I got in there and I sat down in there in the closet, and I was sitting on the floor. And so I waited and waited, and of course I had my phone, my cell phone, and I was talking with Tanya and everything, and then my son called me during that period also, so I was talking back and forth between the two of them. And So when the warning was over, they told me that I could get out of the closet. And I said, well, I'm going to try, but I don't know how well I'm going to do getting out of this thing. And so I didn't have a thing to pull on. And I was sitting flat on the floor. And my legs are just not like they used to be. I mean, they're not as strong as they used to be. So I started trying to just sort of get myself up on I can't get on my knees because I had that blood clot and it damaged all of the little, I forget what they call them. It's in your blood veins. And so the blood just goes down into my feet and just sort of pools down in there, and it doesn't push it back up because those little things they're like little hair almost on the inside of your veins, except they're stronger than hair. And that pushes that blood back up out of your feet and your legs. And mine doesn't work that well anymore since I had the clot. And so I tried to get up, and I couldn't get up. I couldn't get my legs around me because the coat closet, when you usually have just a normal coat closet, it isn't that large. My coat closet probably will hold maybe 10 coats. But of course I didn't have anything in there then. But still, by the time I had the pillows in there, and I had my purse in there, and I had my phone in there, and I had my flashlight in there, and I had all the things I had to put in there. So if I needed them, my medication, things like that, I didn't have much room in the closet. So I was trying to pull myself up to get up out of the floor. And I was talking to my son, and I started laughing, and I said, you're not going to believe this. I said, but I cannot get up out of the floor. And he said, Mom, he said, you have to get up. I said, I know I have to get up, but I have to be able to get up. And I was trying to get a hold of the facings, the door facings. And it was the molding, like us, on all the door facings and everything, so you don't have much of a grip there to get there. And and I would try to put one arm to one side, and that would just pull me, and then I couldn't get up on my knees, so I was in a mess. And I knew that when I got up, I was going to have to go until I could get all the way up, until I was just sort of hunkered down. And I knew that was going to be really hard. So I kept trying to pull on that door facing and that door facing. And finally, and I could hear my son. He was almost like he was, well, come on, Mom. It was like, well, I got my hand out here. Get hold my hand. But, of course, his hand wasn't there. And so I finally just took a lunge and just really heave-hoed and got myself up enough to where I was on my hunches down. I was hunkered down. And I had to sit like that for just a minute before I could raise myself on up because my legs were weak. And especially after just going through about, I'm going to say probably an hour and a half of a warning. And you could hear it on the radio, well, it's coming here, it's going there, it's coming here. And it was following right up through there. And that's not too settling on the nerves. And, of course, your body gets weaker in these types of situations until I guess that you really need that adrenaline moving. And I finally got that adrenaline moving, and it gave me the strength to get up out of that closet. So I learned from that mistake. And so I have a small chair. You all probably have seen them. They're in children's kindergarten classes. My husband came home one day, and he had one of those chairs with him. And he said, I saw this and said, I thought you might like it just to sit on and paint. And it's very, very sturdy, and it's just one of those scooped out chairs. It's made out of a heavy, durable plastic, like a substance, but it's sort of a rubber plastic. It's really strong. And it sets up about, I'm going to say, 2 feet off the floor. So it's just the right size to put in my closet. So I said, I know what I'm going to do with that chair. I'm going to put it in my closet along with my other pillows, and then when I have to get up, I won't have any problems. Well, from then until now, that's what I have in my closet. So I had been sitting in there for this last tornado warning, and Tanya told me, she says, Mom said, you can get up now and get out of the closet. She said, it just passed us, and it's in a different location from us now. And so I said, well, I hope I don't have the trouble I had the last time that I couldn't get out of here. So I started to get up, and I think it is just the stress of the storm and knowing that there is a tornado that close and everything, that it just drains all of your energy out of you. And so I tried to get up the first time, and I couldn't because my legs were so weak that I guess it just took all the energy. And then I tried again, and I tried again. Finally, on the third time, I was able to get up and stand up. But my legs were just so very weak. And so I went ahead then, and I was able to get away from the closet and go on back into my bedroom then. But I sincerely hope that we are through with storms for this season, because we have had, I think, about 6 or 8 hurricanes come up this way. I really haven't counted them, but it just seems to me like there's been a lot of them. And it seems like we just get over one and here comes another one. But anyway, it's gotten cooler now because I'm able to put on a long sleeve sweater, not sweater, but shirt now. And so I'm hoping that since the weather has cooled down, it will cool the Gulf down. And by that water being cooler, then we shouldn't have as many storms. We shouldn't have any more, period, really, unless it starts getting warm here again, which I hope it doesn't. I hope we go into fall. But I don't know if we will or not. But anyway, after I got over with all of that mess and everything, I thought, well, I'm going to make a video. So I made one. And I read one of the papers that I had written to my granddaughter when she was first born. And then I have another one tonight that I'm going to read to you, and I hope that you will enjoy it. I wrote this paper when I was in college, and that's been a good many years back. I think I didn't go to college straight out of high school or anything. I waited until the kids were in school. And I think my son was I believe he was in 6th grade, 5th grade maybe. And then when he got in that grade, I felt that he was old enough that I could start college. So I started to school, and I found out I had always liked to write, and I had written just little papers around, when I didn't have anything to do or something, I'd just maybe sit down and just write a paper, a poem or something like that. And so I just kept on doing that. Well, when I got in school, I took creative writing classes, and my teacher really enjoyed my writings and everything, and she told me that I should get anything that I wrote copyrighted, because it was good enough to be published. So that's what I have done with these papers. And I'm thinking that I might possibly, I don't know, I might put them and just have a book if I get enough of them. I have enough papers written, but I just have to find them now because they're sort of here and there and misplaced and everything. So if I can find all of them, and I'm thinking about taking them down and having them made into a book, and then I'll see what I do with it. But I'd like to have them all bound into one book so that they would be together. But I've written religious poetry, and I've written just, it's not really poems, it's just things that I'm feeling at that particular moment, or just any number of things, situations that have happened to me. And I have numerous papers like that. And this is one that when I was in one of my it was my first creative writing class. And my instructor had us to write just a paragraph. And when we in class one day. So I wrote my paragraph, and she really enjoyed it. So then she gave an assignment for a paper. And I had a sister that had gone through something that was pretty bad. And so I thought, well, I'll just write about this. And so I began trying to write on it. And I just could not get it written the way that I wanted it. And I knew what it was. I felt with all my heart that it was the devil, because it dealt with her belief in God and everything. And so I started writing the paper. I couldn't get it written. I just could not get it written. And usually I just sit down and, as the saying is, with my pen, the words would just flow out the end of my pen. Well, that was not the case for this. So I tried to write it about 2 weeks, I would say, and it was due on a certain date. And I had to have it by that date. And so I tried and tried, and I couldn't do anything. So I had to go to Charleston. We lived about 20 miles out of town. And we didn't pay any attention to that. A 20-mile drive to us was, we would go down there just to get a sandwich. We didn't pay any attention to it at all. And so we had to go down there shopping one day. And I was going down the road, and I thought, I'm going to try to write that paper one more time. And I prayed about it. And I said, God, I'm going to try to write that paper one more time. And I said, then if I can't write it, then I'm going to go on to something else, and I'm going to write a paper on something that I will not worry about it, and it will be easier to write. So I went back home and sat down, got my paper. I always wrote long-handed. I didn't write on a typewriter or anything. I always wrote long-handed. And sat down with my pen and yellow legal pad, and I began writing, and I wrote on that from the beginning to the end in one sitting. So I knew then that it had been the devil. He did not want me to write that paper. And that's what I had felt all along, but I just could not get it written. So I took the paper, and then I typed it and got it ready to present to my instructor. And so I took it down and gave it to her the following day, because it was due the following day. And so I had her, I think it was 3 times a week. So I didn't go to her class the next day. I went 2 days later. And when I walked up to the door to go in the classroom, she looked at me and she said, I have one question to ask you. And I said, oh, yes. And she said, is that paper true that you wrote? And I said, yes. And she said, did you know the person that you wrote it about? I said, yes. I said, that was my sister. And she said, that is wonderful. And she said, whatever you do, hold on to that paper. She said, don't let anyone see that without it being copyrighted. So that's what I did. And so now I have felt for a long, long time that I should read it on my channel for my subscribers and for anyone else that might need to hear that. And I hope that you all will enjoy it as much as she did. And because she told me, she said that could be published quite easily. And she said it's a very, very good story. And she said you need to do something with it. So I'm hoping that this will be the one time that I will do something with it. And I'm hoping that just hearing the story will touch someone's life or make them think about eternity, about God, and why we are put here to begin with. And I think that it will do some good. I really do. And I've written several prayers when I would be burdened for someone or having a problem of some kind. I've written prayers. So I have some of those. The one that I remember especially, I can't find, and that is just silliness on my part for not getting them, just typing them and binding them and putting them in one book. But I'm about like most of these writers. They have papers all around the house, just here, there, and yonder, and that's about the way mine are. They're just strewn all through the house. And so I'm going to try to get them all together and, like I said, and have them put into one book. But this is the paper that, and once again, I was going to push my little thing here to tell me how long I had been on here, and I forgot, as usual. Hope that will do the trick. No, that's not the right button. I haven't worked this thing forever. Clear. Okay, now there's start. Now that should be right. But now I have probably been talking for a good 20 minutes or longer. But anyway, getting back to what I was talking about, I'm going to try to have all of my writings I put into a book, and that way I can keep it, and I can have it, they will bind your books and things at Kinko's and places like that. So that's what I think I'm going to do. But anyway, I wanted to read you all this, and this is, I have to let you know, this is a true story. And it happened to my sister back in the, I would say it was in the mid-40s, 1940s. And because there wasn't a lot of the things that we have now that we just take for granted. There wasn't a lot of things like that back then. And you'll wonder, that will answer some of your questions when you hear some of the things that happens in this. But I titled this, when I'm writing, it tells who I'm writing about. I mean, it doesn't give names or anything like that, but it was just my sister and my brother-in-law. And then, of course, I was involved in it a lot when I would go and stay with them. I was very young, and I would go and visit her a lot, and she would come up and get me and take me down to her house, and I would spend maybe a week or 2 weeks with her and her husband, and we had a really good time and everything. But anyway, I've heard her tell this story a lot of times, but what I did was I have been in the hospital numerous times, and I have had several surgeries myself. So when it came to the part of the surgeries and things that I'm talking about in here, I use a lot of my own things that happened to me, but now some of them actually happened to her. But just the feelings and knowing how things happened and how they felt and everything, that is basically on my experience, my personal experience. And I use that to sort of complement what she had. And I put them together. And after I read it to you, I'll explain a little more about it, and so that you'll understand more of what I'm trying to say, because I can't say too much without giving the whole paper away, and I don't want to do that. But I entitled this Unforgettable, and like I said, this was written back in about 84. I think it was about 83 or 84 that I wrote the paper. But it starts out, as I said, the title of it, Unforgettable. And it says, I could feel my life slipping away. I had been seriously ill for some time and had seen several doctors. Each of them had told me the same thing. I had to have an extremely dangerous operation. I entered the hospital, and my doctor started me on glucose and other medications in order that my frail 68-pound body might try to prepare itself for the excruciating ordeal that lay ahead of me. The morning of my surgery, I was awakened early by a nurse in a white cap and a stiff white uniform. She gave me a shot, and I was placed on a tall chrome stretcher. As I was being whisked through the long, dark, dim hallways, I felt the cold air as it passed around me, sending a chill throughout my body. There was a hushed sound in the halls. In the operating room, I felt myself being lifted by unknown hands and placed on a long black operating table. In the distance, I heard the sound of the doctors' voices talking quietly and the sound of running water as they began scrubbing. Several nurses were placing needles in my arms and legs, and I was being strapped down with wide leather straps. A black rubber mask was placed over my nose and mouth. The room was so cold. Hours later, I heard my name being called. A hand was touching my face. I opened my eyes and looked up, trying to focus on the person bending over me. It was my doctor. I was in the recovery room. I had made it through the operation, but I was so weak, the nurses had to turn my head for me and hold my glass when I was given a drink of water. 2 days later, while lying in my bed, half asleep, I felt myself changing. I was leaving my body, and I was soaring through space at a fantastic rate of speed. The heavens were drawing closer and closer. Around me, there was nothing but a vast expanse of dark, empty space. I looked in back of me, and there was the earth, a small, pale dot spinning in space. Ahead of me, a searing, blinding, brilliant white light was racing toward me. And then I met my Creator. I stood in space beside the man I had served most of my adult life. He gazed at me with such intensity, I felt as if my eyes were being burned from their sockets. When he spoke, his voice was the sound of thunder, so powerful it spread across space and time, reaching all parts of the universe. He said, "Virginia, I am sending you back to Earth. Your work is not finished." I awoke in my bed. My body was trembling so I could hardly hold still. I dared not tell anyone of what I had seen. I could not think about it, much less speak about it. Later, the next week, I lay in bed trying to think about anything except the vision that I had had. My room was small, for which I was thankful. I had grown to hate large spaces. The walls were painted a sterile white color. In the corner sat a stiff black plastic chair. There was a white sink standing against the wall. I could see the metal closet where my clothes hung. On the left side of my bed was a tall, narrow window. I did not like to look at the window because it enabled me to see the sky. Therefore, I had the nurse keep my drapes drawn. I was staring at each part of the room I had become so familiar with. However, as I looked around, it looked foreign, somehow alien to me. I did not belong here. I was an intruder. I belonged somewhere else, in another world. My thoughts flashed back to the vision. No, I did not want to remember that. I could not. Furthermore, I was not ready to deal with it, but there was no escaping. It was now a part of me as surely as my hands were parts of my body. So was that powerful experience I had a few short days before. The following day, my doctor came in and placed a large silver pan on the table in front of me. He began changing the dressing that concealed my incision. This had to be changed daily because of the heavy discharge coming from my side. However, this time was different because he began pulling pieces of rubber from my side. Each piece of the rubber was about 2 feet long. There were enough of these to fill the silver pan he had placed on the table. I felt as if my intestines were being pulled from my body. At last, he began pulling a red piece of rubber from my side. When it was pulled out, I saw it was a large red rubber glove. I was too ill to dwell on why these things had been placed inside me. Later, my father spoke to my doctor and asked why he had packed me with rubber material. The doctor told him they simply had not thought I would recover, so they had packed me and sewn the incision closed, thinking I would not recover. They were amazed that I had survived. After a few months, I was fully recovered physically. Mentally, I had some things I had to sort out. I knew that my parents were concerned about me because they could tell there was something bothering me. I could not, I was not myself. I had a very hard time driving my car, especially if I had to, especially if I came to a small incline in the road. The incline forced my eyes to look upward toward the sky, and I could not do that yet. It was too unsettling and left me trembling over my entire body. For this reason, I told them about my vision. They listened as I explained what I had been going through all of these months. My father had been a minister before retiring, so he was the perfect person to give me guidance during the time I was working through all of the feelings concerning coming face to face with God and the amount of power that surrounded him. I dared not tell my husband because he had grown to think that he was an atheist. I had prayed for him since we had fallen in love and married. In return, he laughed and rebuffed me, telling me I could no longer go to church. I knew something had to change. There was a small wooden shed in our backyard. This little shed was where I went to pray every day. During one of the days I was praying, I told God how much I loved my husband. But I also told him that he came first in my life. And if I had to leave my husband to continue living a Christian life, I was ready to do that. One night, not long after my prayer to God, I was awakened by a movement at the side of my bed. I turned my head and saw my husband kneeling by my bedside. He was crying and said, "Virginia, can you pray with me? I can't move." He was a totally broken man. I moved down beside him and began praying to my Heavenly Father for my beloved husband. My husband gave his life to God that night and became a completely changed man. He began attending church with me and began studying his Bible incessantly. A couple of years later, he announced that he had been called into the ministry, and a local church asked him to become their pastor. Later, he also began holding numerous lectures. I can't see that too well. Numerous lectures across our state and was appointed head of a large religious denomination. During that time, as I sat in the audience watching my husband preach numerous messages and lecture on the Bible from Genesis to Revelations, I could not help but wonder if this was my unfinished work God had spoken to me about, now finished. And that's the end of the story. He remained a preacher for, I don't know, probably 30-some years. And he had completely changed his life because he wasn't a very nice person before that. But she had lived for God. most of her entire life since she was just a young girl. And when she had that vision, she was so sick. She had lost all of her hair, and we have a picture of her when her hair had come back in after she got better, and it was about an inch and a half long, and it was just big curls that just lay all over her head. And but that took an awful lot out of her. But after that, when she would go to church, we used to have services in our church on Wednesday nights. I don't know how most of you do, but they called it prayer service. And so when we would go to church on Wednesday nights, a lot of times, or if she was at a different church, she would get up and tell people about the vision she had and when she saw God. And she never got over that. And she lived to be 90, I believe it was 93 years old. And she had always lived a Christian life. And she wrote papers, poems. I have one of her poems, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And she was a wonderful woman, as well as being my sister, and I loved her dearly. But she was a wonderful woman in God. And if this paper will do anything for anyone who maybe really don't believe that there is a God, when she was telling me the things that I told you about that I used my own experiences in, was like when she was being wheeled through the hall, because I've been wheeled through those hallways in the early morning hours going to surgery too, and those halls are so cold, and that air that just comes up around your body, it does send chills throughout your body. And that's the type of things that I used for my experiences. But since it was in the 40s, their medicines were much, much older than they hadn't even been invented. I don't think I don't know if penicillin had been invented then or not. But she had a cyst that had grown, that was just one of the things that was wrong with her, had grown completely from one side of her body, her stomach, to the other side. And I forget how big it was. And then there were other things inside there that had messed up too by that being so large and everything. But like I said, she had lost all of her hair, and she only weighed 68 pounds. And she was about I'm going to say 5'7", probably, 5'6" to 5'7". She was a tall girl, and beautiful, and talented, so talented she could do anything she wanted to. She could sew, she could crochet, she could cross stitch, she could do flower arrangements. There was nothing she couldn't do, really. And seemed like a lot of the girls in our family was like that. Now, I had one sister that was not that way at all. I had two sisters, really, that was like that. But one started painting, and then the other one started painting. And she did well painting, but as far as making clothes or making drapes or anything like that, those two girls couldn't do that. But the rest of the girls, there were 5 of us girls, and we all could sew, and we made drapes and dresses and anything we wanted to, really. And then we painted, and we wrote poetry and papers and things like that. But I seem to be pretty well endowed with things like that. But she went through an awful lot in that particular situation. But she came out with a testimony that went with her through the rest of her life. And she told people about it too. And when I wrote this paper, I called her when I was getting ready to write it, and I called her Jen. And I said, Jen, I said, would you mind if I'd write a paper about your surgery that you had when you saw God? And she said, no, said I wouldn't care. And I said, well, I said, I'm going to try to write it. And that's before I had it written. And then after I got it written, I read it to her. And she liked it. She really liked it. So I was glad that I was able to please her in writing it the way that I did. And but it made my instructor sit up and take notice. And I hope that there will be other people that will hear this and will like it too. But I'm going, since I've been on here for quite a while, so 22 minutes since I set my little alarm. So I'm going to have to close this up and get off here. But I just wanted to let you all know what exactly this was about and everything. And if I can find some of my other papers, I'll go ahead from time to time, and not all the time, but from time to time, and read those to you. And see how you feel about those. But I will be talking with you guys later then. And I hope that all of you are doing well. And I'm sure that there are many of you who have experiences of things that have happened to you. And I know I've had plenty with the surgeries that I've had. And they're not fun. They're not fun at all. But we have to do what we have to do. So I'm going to jump off of here before I run out of time. And I will be talking with you all, good Lord's will, before too long. And as I always say, just remember that I do love all of you and that God loves you a whole bunch more, just like he loved my sister. And he sent her back because her husband was not doing what he should be doing, and no one could get to him. He wouldn't even talk to the religious people because he believed himself to be an atheist. And he only did that right when they were getting ready to get married. And she thought she could change him, and she did. She didn't, God did. But when she turned him over to God that last time that she prayed for him in the little building that she always prayed in, that's when God took over. And he put him on the floor, and he couldn't move. And he had to have Jen pray with him. So that was her work that she was sent back to finish. And due to that, there were countless people that were saved. And due to his preaching and his lecturing and everything. So God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. So just remember, God loves all of you, a whole bunch. So I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.